In the gray rain of Manhattan, a young intern discovers that courage is not just raising one's voice, it's facing an entire world of calculated silence. Among glass skyscrapers and hidden truths, a simple gesture can change destinies and reveal that character still matters more than power. The light rain washed the glass facades of Sterling and Cole as Hannah Reed, 24, ascended the final steps of the subway with her briefcase pressed to her chest. Her brown hair, usually well-arranged, was slightly damp at the ends, but she didn't mind. What truly mattered was carefully stored inside the briefcase. Weeks of meticulous work, analyses, and observations that no one had requested but she felt compelled to do. An intern in risk analysis, Hannah woke before dawn, drank machine coffee, and mentally repeated the phrase her mother, who passed away 2 years ago, had left on a yellowed note pinned to the family Bible. Courage is telling the truth when the entire room prefers silence. The apartment Hannah shared with 2 roommates in Queens was nothing like the gleaming skyscrapers of Manhattan. It was small, with thin walls and a window that never closed properly, letting in street noise and the cold in winter. But it was what she could afford while balancing the bills, paying off student loans, and sending a little to help her father, who was still struggling to get back on his feet after the loss of his wife. Hannah studied at night, worked on weekends, and now traversed corridors where the price per minute was worth more than many monthly salaries. The dream wasn't glamour, it was dignity, proving to herself that even after losing her mother and almost her faith, she could build a life with what she called wealth that does not expire. On the 42nd floor, the hierarchy was a choreography of calculated steps. Partners in tailor-made suits, easygoing VPs, perpetually hurried associates, traders who spoke numbers as effortlessly as they breathed. And there were the invisibles, receptionists, messengers, assistants, and interns like Hannah. One morning, Marcus Hale, the brilliant and feared chief strategy officer, requested from her 2 espressos and, if possible, discretion during an important meeting. The muffled laughter from the others still burned in her memory. Hannah had made an observation about a point she found inconsistent in the presentation, and that was the response. Marcus, around 45 years old, was known for his sharp intelligence and his intolerance for what he called inefficiencies. Tall, always well-dressed, with a watch worth more than a car, he navigated the company corridors as if the floor should be grateful to be walked upon by him. His charismatic smile appeared in corporate photographs and charity events, but quickly vanished when the cameras turned off. In the breaks between meetings, Hannah talked with Gabriel Ortiz, a soft-spoken messenger in his early 40s, who always asked, "Is everything all right, Miss Reed?" He said he called her Miss out of respect. "One day they will listen to you." Gabriel had gentle, slightly tired eyes and hands that revealed years of work. He walked through the corridors of Sterling and Cole almost as invisible as Hannah, delivering documents, carrying packages, listening to conversations no one imagined he could understand. But there was something about Gabriel, a silent dignity, an attentive observation that suggested he was much more than he appeared to be. "It must be tough for someone so young to be among these sharks," Gabriel once commented as they waited for the elevator. "You get used to the sound of chattering teeth," Hannah joked, making him smile. "Don't let them convince you that numbers matter more than people, Miss Reed. I've seen what happens when someone believes that." That Monday, the glass-walled meeting room gathered big names. The topic, Atlas Yield Notes, an innovative structure promising stable returns to a large pension fund, $3 billion on the table. Hannah had stayed late cross-referencing data and noticed something troubling. A spread that didn't add up, underestimated default assumptions, a macro stuck where it should recalculate. Something was wrong with the projections Marcus would present. Very wrong. At 7:10 a.m., on the ground floor, Gabriel handed her something. It was left behind at the compliance printer. It was a physical file, gray cover, dry title, Q3 variants, redwood side letters. "Be careful with this," Gabriel said, with a look that said much more than his words. Inside, emails and boards with temporary adjustments, implicit guarantees, and side letters that pushed losses onto satellite vehicles, precisely those that would feed the Atlas. On the last page, A handwritten note. If anyone reads this, check Atlas's spreadsheets, DN. The initials reminded one of Derek Nolan, the former risk director, who had resigned abruptly months earlier. Voluntary resignation, they said. But the hallway rumors spoke of a forced exit following disagreements with Marcus over risk tolerance. When the meeting began, Marcus lined up projections like fireworks. Diversified risk, minimal correlation, likely AA rating. A partner commented, "It's money on the ground. Just bend down and pick it up." Hannah observed the attendees. At the head of the table, Marcus Hale commanded the presentation with his usual performative confidence. Next to him, partners nodded in automatic approval. Across the table, the main client, the CIO of the pension fund, an old man with white eyebrows and an attentive gaze, accompanied by two analysts who were meticulously taking notes. Hannah raised her hand. Her voice barely came out. "Sorry, she began. After the introductions, Marcus interrupted, still smiling at the clients. "Please bring sparkling water." She felt her face burn. The CIO of the fund, with his discreet gaze, was observing the interaction with undisclosed interest. Something in his eyes seemed to evaluate not only the projected numbers but also the dynamics in the room. Celeste Nguyen, the compliance director, 40 years old, entered late, nodded to everyone, and stood, elegant and firm as steel. With her impeccable posture and analytical gaze, Celeste was known for her unwavering integrity. The daughter of Vietnamese immigrants who built a small business from scratch, she had learned early on that rules exist for a reason. "As I was saying," Marcus resumed, "Atlas is our masterpiece." Hannah tightened the pen. She remembered her mother's note. Courage when the room prefers silence. She heard her heart in her throat. She breathed. She thought of her mother, how she had faced illness with dignity until the end, never losing her integrity. "Excuse me, I need to show something," she said firmly, and pulled the file from the folder. Silence fell like a blade. Marcus stiffened. "Hannah, this is highly inappropriate. They are side letters linked to vehicles that feed Atlas. If these flows are recognized, the curve drops and the risk explodes." Celeste reached out a hand. "Let me see." Hannah handed over the dossier. The CIO leaned in, interested. Marcus tried to smile, but his jaw was tense. "Celeste, this is decontextualized preliminary material." Celeste leafed through it, marking passages with her finger. Her eyes did not blink. "Who gave this to you, Hannah?" she asked. "I found it on the compliance printer," she replied, without mentioning Gabriel. Marcus laughed without humor. "Printers, always them. Well, gentlemen, can we get back?" "No," Celeste said sharply. "We cannot. These side letters constitute implicit guarantees. The Atlas doesn't hold up with these premises. I recommend an immediate pause." Tension swept across the table. Someone cleared their throat. The CIO crossed his arms, now openly intrigued. "Young lady, what is your name?" asked Hannah. "Hannah Reed. And why did you speak up, knowing you could lose your job?" She looked at her reflection in the glass, small, with a hastily done bun and the suit she had inherited from a thrift store. She thought of her mother, of the nights when she came back exhausted from 2 jobs but still found the energy to review homework and tell stories. "Because I wouldn't know how to go home if I stayed silent." The meeting was adjourned. Marcus left with looks that promised consequences. Celeste asked Hannah to accompany her. In the hallway, the compliance director spoke quietly. "Do you understand what this implies?" "I do, and I know how heavy it is up here for those who are down there. But the numbers, they don't add up." "Numbers don't lie," Celeste said. "People, sometimes, do." That night, alone on the steps of Trinity Church, Hannah cried in silence. "God, if you are listening, I don't want to shine. I just don't want to betray what my mother taught me." The wind brought the smell of the Hudson, and for the first time since the funeral, Hannah felt like the prayer didn't hit the ceiling. She wiped away her tears and looked at the old church surrounded by skyscrapers, a silent reminder that some things remain steadfast, no matter what is built around them. He returned to the office when the cell phone vibrated. "Celeste, the special committee has just been formed." and the pension fund requested access to the raw data. They said no one else is to speak with them besides me. And you. Me. The CIO wants you on the next call. He said he trusts someone who can handle a hostile room. In her small apartment, Hannah couldn't sleep. She mentally reviewed every number, every inconsistency, preparing to explain her findings. On the wall above her simple bed, there was a picture of her with her mother at her graduation. Two smiling women, one with the future ahead, the other unaware of how much time she had left. Make a difference, my love, her mother had said that day. It doesn't matter where. 2 days later, Sterling and Cole felt like a different building. Spreadsheets open, servers audited, the word pause echoing. Marcus had disappeared from the upper floors. Rumors suspended. The air was different, lighter, but also tense with anticipation of what was to come. There was. Marcus Hale was terminated for corporate just cause and investigated. 2 partners accepted suspensions. Sterling and Cole, pressured by the client and by compliance, assumed short-term losses and saved its long-term reputation. Gabriel Ortiz, the messenger, was called by Celeste to the 42nd floor. Hannah was there when he entered, hat in hand. Was it you who left the file on the printer? Celeste asked. Gabriel took a deep breath. I worked for 15 years as a forensic accountant at another firm. I was fired after reporting a fraud. I went down to the mailroom, and my name was never spoken again. When I saw that file, I thought, someone needs to look at this with fresh eyes. And I trusted Miss Reed. How did you know she would do something about it? Celeste asked. Gabriel smiled slightly. I saw how she treated the cleaning staff. I heard how she thanked the security guards by name. I observed how she studied reports that no one asked her to analyze. People show who they are in the small things, not the big ones. Celeste smiled for the first time in days. Do you want to go back to doing what you were born to do, Mr. Ortiz? The smile that lit up Gabriel's face was like the sun after days of storms. More than anything. 2 months later, Sterling and Cole created a data integrity team. Hannah was promoted to junior analyst and Gabriel became a specialist on the compliance team. The pension fund maintained a relationship and expanded business, with the condition that the firm preserve dissenting voices. Hannah's new office had a small window, but it was hers. A pot with a plant that Gabriel had given her occupied a corner of the desk, to remind you that integrity, like plants, needs daily care to grow, he had said. On her first morning as an analyst, Hannah opened a drawer and found an envelope without a sender. Inside was her mother's note, the same one, now with an extra line, written by another hand. Courage confirmed. CN. Celeste had returned the note that Hannah had dropped on the day of the crisis. Hannah smiled, rested her forehead on the table, and silently gave thanks. It was not by chance. Someone left a file at the right printer. Someone arrived at the meeting at the exact minute. Someone closed dangerous doors and opened the only one that mattered. The hand of God, she thought, also works in glass and steel. At lunch, Hannah found Gabriel in the cafeteria. Now in his new role, he wore a suit and tie, but maintained the same humility in his eyes. Strange to be up here, he remarked. You've always been above, Gabriel. They were just looking at you upside down. He laughed. You know what my grandmother always said? When the truth is on your side, you are never alone. Hannah nodded, thinking of her own mother and the lessons that continued to guide her. At the end of the workday, she met Gabriel in the lobby. Thank you for believing, she said. I just saw in you what I once lost in myself, he replied. Courage. Hannah stepped out onto the street. The Manhattan wind felt less cold. In the window of a cafe, she saw her own reflection, not that of the invisible intern, but someone who had chosen truth when the room preferred silence. As she walked to the subway, she passed a man in a corner playing the violin. The melody was sweet and piercing amid the city's noise. Hannah stopped, listened for a moment, and placed some bills in the instrument case. Thank you, miss, said the man. Do you know the name of this song? Hannah shook her head. Amazing Grace. It's about how grace can find even the lost, he explained, resuming his playing. Hannah smiled and continued on her way, and she finally understood the lesson her mother repeated. True wealth lies not just in numbers, but in character, justice, and faith. On Wall Street, where everything seems like calculation, God acts where you least expect it, sometimes through a forgotten file, a silent messenger, and an intern who decided to raise a hand.